So I'm going to hand you over to Matt Morris. There you go. We're good to go.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for having me.
Thanks for coming.
I appreciate it. I would like to give a quick shout out to American Airlines because I am wearing the same clothes as I flew in yesterday. So I apologize for, I had a nice suit packed and pressed, but it's according to my text message, it's just arrived at the hotel. So fly American if you don't need your luggage. They were very apologetic while they were texting their boyfriend on their phone and luggage. So anyway, Matt Majors, I'm from the great state of Tennessee. You cannot tell that by my accent. I know I sound like a redneck, but I'm kind of a high-tech redneck. So we're going to talk through some of that. I worked full-time for Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. Just wanted to be a game warden. That's all I wanted to do. But they stationed me on a lake where there was boat crash after boat crash after boat crash. Lots of marine related stuff. So I came by this secondary career path sort of. I came by it honestly, but I didn't mean to go this direction. But what I saw was boating investigations in my mind were more important than hopping out of the weeds like a lizard and catching people for game and fish violations. Now, it was very fun, don't get me wrong, and my heart is still there, but you can make a big difference by what you do in the marine industry. And especially from my perspective, a lot of times you guys are after the crash, but our guys and myself, we respond to the crash and try to hold people accountable for their actions that cause collisions. And believe it or not, it usually involves the people that are behind the wheel. It's usually not the boat. So, but we're going to talk about some newer technologies. So quick preface too, my secondary job is I teach with the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators, and I teach boating incident investigation all over the country and even outside of the country. And I really enjoy that. I really love preparing our officers, our marine law enforcement officers to investigate accidents and crashes better. How many of you have seen terrible reports by officers? Boy, I have them come through my office pretty regularly. So that is sort of my mission, is to try to get them to do better. They want to get in a hurry and just do the bare minimum and move on, but that doesn't just disservice to themselves. So it's my hope through that training that they can learn some stuff. Additionally, Coast Guard gives us a grant every other year or so, and we do staged boating collisions. So if you would have told me as a kid, they're going to pay you to crash boats, you can get data from, man, that's like the coolest thing ever. So, and several of you mentioned it, you know, the stability testing facility there in Solomons, Maryland, a lot of times they give us their boats. So I've gone there a number of times, got their boats, and then we crashed them. So do a lot of work in the marine industry. Didn't mean to be here, but I love it. And you all do good work. So I'm going to talk to you about some electronics that are on boats. How many of you are old enough to remember when you had to special order electronic door locks and windows on cars? Several of you. These kids today, it just comes on it, right? It's standard. But you had to have money to get that years ago. You did. You had to check a box and go, I'll pay extra for electric door locks and windows. Years ago, that's the way it used to be on boats, right? If you had a navigational radar or a chart plotter, you were something else, weren't you? You really were. Everybody's like, that guy's got money. So with that being said, now tell me a boat that you've seen that doesn't have some sort of electronics. They all come with it. You can buy the cheapest, you can go to Bass Pro Shops and buy the cheapest little bass boat they got. It's got some sort of high-end chart plotter. A lot of times the chart plotters we see on these older boats are worth more than the boat. But it's very important to those fishermen, right? So I'm going to talk to you about some GPS data, ways you can get. We're going to look at lots of pictures, lots of videos. So that's the only way I know how to keep students happy, is to show them stuff, because I'm really not that cool. And I apologize, I don't have a clicker, but I'll be walking back and forth, but I'll stay up here some. So have any of you had any experience with GPS information? Have you? Several. So here's what you can get from them. Dates, times, location. Will people lie to you? So I tell our new recruits, I say I get lied to so much when I get home and the dog licks me. I don't know if he's telling the truth anymore. But the cool thing about GPSs is they don't care if you're rich or poor, if you're the stand-on, if you're the giveaway vessel, how fast you're going, how slow you're going, or how much money's in your bank account. They are logging information that can be truly crucial to your investigation from a civil standpoint or a criminal standpoint. Generally, we're looking at it from criminal culpability for my agency. A lot of times you can get speed, direction of travel, patterns of operation. Is that important? Yeah, I've had people that would tell me, they'd say, man, the reason I ran up in the woods with my boat is I was not familiar with that section of water. But actually, historical GPS data shows them going around that point 100 times in the past 3 months. So were you just not familiar? Well, maybe I was familiar. Maybe a lie or an embellishment. But oftentimes this GPS data can push these people into telling a better truth, not the truth they want me to hear. So let's look at some of this data here. This course goal, again, this is your course. Please ask questions. I love questions. It's your course. I'm just here to kind of get your mind going. Whatever you want to know about GPS, we'll talk about it. We're going to talk just briefly about some history and how the GPS systems work. We're not going much into that. You can research that on your own. It's pretty simple, but we're looking at end user data. What the recreational boater, the commercial boater, and their interaction with that GPS system is. Can you imagine? I make fun of me a lot, but an old country boy from Tennessee trying to navigate by stars, man, we just go back to the dock. We wouldn't even try. Do you?
Yeah, I teach it.
My hat's off to you. If I told my new officers, hey, we're taking GPSs off your boat, night operations, you navigate by stars, they wouldn't leave the dock. But that's the way they did it, right? And it can be very successful. And I know he can tell you, it can be very successful, but it's a learned skill. But we've relied on technology, and here's where we're at now. We really have this user segment. How many of you don't have some sort of GPS locator on you right now? I mean, our phones, right? Yeah, certainly. What about your cars? Trucks, homes? Every time you try to open an app on a smartphone, it says turn on your location services, right? Yeah, everything's tracking us, right? Millions of users, some for good, some for bad, right? But when it comes down to an incident or something that needs to be investigated, can this information be crucial? Absolutely. There are other navigation systems for other countries, and you all may know of some of those. I don't know about any of that stuff that they do in those other countries, but they have put their own satellites, just like the great US of A has done, and they operate their own GPS systems. Just wanted you to know that was out there. So all we're really doing with GPS data is time, speed, distance, right? Have y'all ever done any of those calculations? Time, speed, distance. It's really important to know that that's how it's calculated. I've been through a number of civil and criminal trials on boat crashes. And one of the common questions I get from these sharp defense attorneys is, you've just got a college education. How are you doing math? Well, it's addition, subtraction, or division. I mean, it's like third grade math. And so when I tell them that, I really want them to feel stupid because it was a dumb question to begin with. And if a guy from Tennessee can do it, anybody can. It's not an expert level thing. So we'll show you some of the examples of that. GPS is used trilateration. So if I told you were 170 miles from Macon, 179 from Montgomery, and 156 from Jacksonville, all of those places are going to put you in one spot, right? When they all trilaterate, and that's going to put you in Tallahassee, Florida, right? Simple. That's all it does. Trilateration. You want me to go back one?
That's a word I've never heard.
Yes. So do you, any of you use some of those old first GPS receivers? Any of you have any of those? And you would turn them on and you'd have to wait. And you could watch the screen where it would connect to the satellites. I've still got one of my first ones. I got it in about 97. And it's still those satellites, and it would take forever to connect. Now, when you turn one on, it's instantly connected. There's a lot more satellites. So when it'll reach out and grab 2, 3, 5, 7 satellites or more sometimes. There used to be less satellites in the sky. GPS wasn't a big deal. So it would take a while for it to connect to all those and then go through that process to figure out where it was. Are GPS is accurate? What do y'all think? So there's some error built in, and that comes back with when you see the government with the control segment. Okay, they have the ability to change the accuracy of those. Why would our government want to do that? Primarily, not just to put the finger on the man or be big government, but for war times, right? I picture some guy in a little dungeon with a big old knob. He goes, ooh, and turn. I don't think that's the way. So a lot of things can affect the accuracy. You know, when we're in an open field and we can see everything, our phones will tell us really right where we're at. And if any of you use GPS navigation, turn right in 300 feet, and usually they're right. I've already passed the turn by then, but they were right all along because I was listening to the radio or something. But if you get in the middle of a bunch of buildings, near cliffs and things, can that affect those signals? Absolutely. So your accuracy can go up and down just depending. But we're usually dealing with open bodies of water and lakes and rivers. So oftentimes the information we get from these GPSs are pretty darn good. Are you aware of the different GPS formats? So there's a number of different formats. There's even apps for your phone. If you have one format, but you need it in another, it will transform it. One of the things we deal from the first responder perspective is if somebody gives us GPS data of where something has happened, we've got to make sure that our dispatcher knows what coordinate format that's in, because here's the two same numbers, but two different formats. And that could definitely change our search area or recovery area depending upon what we needed. So just be mindful, they don't all coordinate with each other or collate with each other, but you will have to change some information. Yes, sir.
Well, atmospheric conditions affect you.
So I've not seen major issues. Now, heavy thunderstorms, snow, stuff like that, potentially it could happen.
Solar storm.
So I always hear that, and I don't disagree with that. I've just not seen it, but that's probably
Solar flares do affect.
and they even, you know, we have radio analysts in our state, and they say that's a real thing for radio communications as well.
GPS as well. They
It
give
will
coordinates
affect.
when they're coming, actually.
So always keep those things in mind. If somebody says, hey, my GPS wasn't acting right. Well, was something else going on? Was there something that could have, maybe they're telling us the truth, right? Maybe they are. So those are definitely good things to keep in mind. The weather, solar flares, anything that's going to affect this signal. We've got to keep that in mind for sure. Let's look at some GPSs that are out there. People are using these for anything. We use them from a law enforcement perspective, not just for boating stuff, but for hunting stuff. You know, they put the little collars around the hunting dogs. We made great cases where people would follow their hunting dogs into state refuges or property that you couldn't trespass on. And then when we catch them out on the road, they say, oh, no, I didn't go in there. But when we would get that data and we could prove that they actually did go there. So definitely good information. What about these wearables? Any of you have GPSs in your watches? Knows right where you are? Yeah, we do. I know I don't look like it, but I run a lot. I'm sure I run slow. Just give me that. But I really enjoy running. But my little watch here can tell you everywhere I've gone. It can tell you when I switch sidewalks on one side of a road. It can tell you what my heart rate is. We have used heart rate data in boating incident investigations just from these wearables. Is that important?
Oh, yeah.
It
Yeah.
certainly is. I get nervous when I run into something and my heart rate goes up. So when they say, no, I didn't do anything. Well, why was your heart rate at 225 beats per minute for 4 minutes? That's fight or flight heart rate. So definitely gives us some insight into what they may be doing. Garmin, any of you seeing those? Big name. If you see a Garmin in your investigation, smile. I love Garmin. They have been to some of our classes before. We teach a GPS forensics class and they provide, their units provide some of the best information out there. Time, speed, date, lots and lots of good location. I love Garmin's stuff.
Truly international as well, that all around the world
Yes.
is seeing it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Lowrance, some of those, a lot of times you'll see those more on inland lakes, smaller lakes. I see a lot of those. As fishermen, smaller boats will have those. Lots of Lowrance product. Humminbird is another one, a lot like Lowrance. You're gonna see these fishermen. And those are your primary three that I see in my state, some of the other states that I work in, is those three brands there. Raymarine, now we're getting more into bigger, larger boats. We'll bring on these Raymarine products. They're a lot more oriented to set up with navigational radar and multi-system units, not only from a regular bridge to a fly bridge, things like that. Bruno, any of you working with those? There's some data there. I don't pour mouth Bruno, but it's a harder system to get stuff out of, but each one of these is likely gonna have some good data in it. So don't think you're not gonna get it. So what kind of things are in GPSs? Any of you know? We'll take a guess at it. You know, I gotta get you off.
Times, dates,
Time.
past coordinates,
Yes.
headings, speed.
Yes, all of those things potentially. Is that important to you? It should be in almost every incident investigation. I'm trying to think of times too. What about damage to vessels? When somebody comes in and goes, man, my lower unit just fell off. Lower units don't fall. So could you potentially use that GPS data to find out where they've been and what shoals or rock piles they've run over? Potentially so. So keep that in mind. And these will still be sitting there. I had a national columnist. He came and visited one of our classes and he wanted to do a big write-up on GPS forensics. And I said, no. And he was like, well, why not? I said, I don't want the public to know how much we're using it. Now, I think they know, or they're starting to know. But I did not want to publicize that, hey, when you drive your boat around, it's tracking you everywhere you go. So let's just keep that a trade secret or something. And so he kindly didn't do anything on it. And I'm thankful we just kind of keep that quiet because some people say, well, I'm just in a boat. Nobody will know where I'll be or what I did. And they don't know what's happening in the background. Track lines. This is sort of the bread and butter of what we do in boating incident investigation, crash or collisions, elisions, things like that, groundings. That's the data we're looking for. This is what's going to happen right here. This is a Cayman Island case that one of my other instructors, he worked and he got contracted to go there, and there were 50,000 points in this all over this bay. Now, the operator who killed a friend and crippled his other friend had been in and out of this inlet here and all over this bay. His first boat, who he had sank, the name of his boat was called Reckless. I'm not making this up. The boat that he crashed when this investigation went on, his boat name was Even More Reckless. Sometimes the jokes make themselves. Not downplaying the serious injury or fatality part of it. Awful, but where do you start when you download all this data? What if it doesn't have time and date stamp? That can really be challenging. And so some of these analysis portions, the download you'll see is easy, but the analysis portion can be pretty challenging. Dates, times, locations. What I have found interesting through some of my investigations through the years is what they do after the incident. Is that important? Is that a mindset when they say, oh, I tried to help? But they never even circled around the other boat and they just left at a high rate of speed and immediately went and put it on the trailer. And then we pull security footage of them pulling it up on the trailer, not even tying it down and taking off out of the park. Is all that helped me put the frame of reference of mind they were in? Absolutely. They were leaving the scene of an incident, and that's really helpful too. Patterns of behavior. We've got a really good case example, and we'll show you here in just a few minutes. So this is another one of our instructors did here, but ultimately this guy was coming back in for the weigh-in of a bass tournament. Any of you ever seen those? It's like NASCAR with fishing rods. So they'll go as far away as they can to fish their secret fishing spot, and then they'll go as fast as they can back because they've got to weigh in by a certain time. So the problem is, you can't hardly see this, but this is the river, right, as it turns. It's this wide, a couple of 100 feet wide. But the operator there, who did not pay attention to inland navigation rules, passing port to port, but he did know his geometry, and he said the closest way to a place is through a straight line and not an arc, and pass port to port. So he collided and killed a husband and wife there on that port, or on that point. But you're only seeing the data, these plotted points here, that's only the day of. But he had been by that point hundreds of times, and he had cut this point every single time. So criminal, yes, but more importantly, and I love, one of my passions is human factors. Was that man complacent? Had he ever crashed there before? No. He'd never seen a boat coming around that turn. It had never scared him. Any of you ever been struck by lightning? Oh my gosh. Really?
On a trap lift, came through the water back up through that's why my hair's curling.
So let me ask you a question. When it thunders outside, do you go inside then?
I do, not all the time, but, and I'm not on the sailboat mast either.
Okay. All right, let me try a different example. I didn't expect to have somebody that's been struck by lightning. He ain't been struck by a car, pedestrian.
I have.
Messing up all my jokes.
I need to take too funny.
I was gonna say.
Why you asking, if you ask a question, you're supposed to get an answer, right?
That's right. So I'm not gonna ask him because I know his answer. He probably just strolls right across the street like no big deal. But most people that have been struck by a car, what do? Well, when they come to a crossing, look, they're calculating. And then on that, and then when they see a place to do things. Right? They don't want to be hit again.
That's why.
But that's what happens to our boat operators, right? That's what happens to me when I'm on the water. I have driven at night and been driving back to the dock. Okay, everything still works. That's good. It was a log, right? But I can also show you video of some of our other officers upside down in a boat, paddling right beside their boat. Do they operate slower than me? Yeah, those jokers putt back. And they're like, no. They're rehabilitated from the complacency. Does that make sense? So this fellow was complacent. It's one of the things it comes down to. Locations of interest. This was a track line that was off of a smuggler, and most people don't think Florida has neighboring countries, but this is Bimini, right across about 39 miles or
49 miles.
49 miles, something like that. But yes, this was where they went right before they came over and landed on the beach there just south of, I'll think of it here in just a second. Is that good for our drug smuggling people? Yeah, they might want to know where this stuff's coming from. So the departure points, arrival points, Port Everglades. And then points of contact where they ran into it. Any of you ever seen GPS data that looks like this? So some of your older GPSs, if you find older ones, in the settings, it will allow you as the user to tell it how often you want to plot points. Now, you can say you don't plot any points, but most of these come to plot every 1 or 5 seconds. So if you go somewhere and stay every 1 or 5 seconds, it'll keep plotting the point, and you'll end up with something like this because of that GPS error that keeps moving it around a little bit. You'll end up with this spaghetti bowl of GPS points. A lot of your newer ones now, they come with settings in them that are more user-friendly. Basically, if you stop, it will quit plotting points. So you don't get all these points. So you may see either one or, just understand that that'll be a setting. What they're trying to do is save memory in that machine, really, from talking to these manufacturers. They're trying to save that memory by quit plotting points every time it stops somewhere. Waypoints, what are those?
Marked spots on the map.
Yeah, yeah, they are. And you know, I had, who uses waypoints a lot? What do you use them for?
Well, some of in the Great Lakes, the buoys get pulled and some of them are in the same spots, the Atons, some of them are in the same spots, some of them are a little different or changed.
A little off.
So you wanna make sure you know where they are this year so you don't have a
Amen.
nighttime collision.
So, you know, I didn't really think, we deal so little in waypoints, but years and years ago, I had a professional bass fisherman. His name was this long, I couldn't pronounce it. But he had a cameraman on the front of his boat. It was raining really hard. He was on Kentucky Lake in Tennessee. He's going under a bridge, but they're both hunkered over and they run into the bridge. Critically injures the cameraman. So I respond, I get there. I get consent from the boat owner. He's not the boat owner. It's a consignment boat from a company. And we'll talk about legal issues in a second, but I get consent from the true owner of the boat. And the fisherman calls me and he was like, I was probably going 45. I wasn't looking. It's my fault. But my livelihood is in that GPS. All of his marked fishing spots all over the country. That's his livelihood, right? He spent thousands and thousands of hours putting those waypoints in there. He was like, if I lose those, it would be awful. And I said, man, your secret's safe with me. So after we're done, 1995, a copy, I've got all his waypoint. Just kidding, I don't have that. But that's what he was worried about, right? But more times than not, a lot of our people don't have a lot of waypoints. Just don't have a lot in inland lakes, so to speak. High value assets, right? What if they keep going to a specific house? What if they frequent a lakeside bar? Is that important to you? I know none of you drink, and that's fine, to each his own, but some people do, and lakeside bars are a lot more prevalent. So if you're going there every day at 5 and coming home every day at 10, but finally you have a crash, I can establish through the GPS information habits and patterns that may help me support operating under the influence, potentially. We'll talk more about that. Additionally, if they're going to specific places, are y'all all using Google Earth? You can go to Street View, see these locations, document them, any of this stuff. We have had people after incidents go to specific houses, stay for 5 minutes and then leave. Turns out some of them were dropping off coolers of alcoholic beverages and things like that. That helped us on our follow-up information. So just know after the fact, you may need to figure out some of these locations. Also intent. Some of the people, especially your drug smugglers, human smugglers, they're dealing with this all over the southern borders there. The people that are smuggling these people, they don't know where to go, but somebody will give them a handheld GPS and plot them a point and say, you go to this spot and there'll be somebody waiting. They don't know. So again, for criminal investigations, could be pretty good information there. What about routes? Are any of you building routes in any of your marine electronics? Some, generally more to the people who are traveling long distances or maybe in unfamiliar waters and want to go ahead and plot out their course. online and then upload it to their GPS unit before they go to a particular place. I don't see many routes in the recreational boating community that I've seen. Trip computers. This is important. If they've had that GPS their whole, I say their whole, you know, sometimes people will sell boats with GPS, so past data could be somebody else's data. So you gotta find out how long have you had this boat, how long you had the GPS, but if they say, hey, I bought it new, and they've got hundreds and hundreds of operational hours on that, then that begs the question, they knew where they were at, or potentially if they were habituated to that area. Could be a good question. Let's talk a little bit about collection and preservation of this information. Photographing. Is it probably gonna be different when y'all get there? Usually always is. Heck, we get there within 5 or 10 minutes sometimes to crash, the incident, or 4 hours later, and it's different. So how do we deal with that? Good interview skills, right? Talk to them. Hey, when was this turned off? Were y'all using it at the time? You know, do you know how to use it? Stuff like that. Again, hopefully we're getting the word out. Lean on your law enforcement reports and case files that you could get through public records while you're doing your inspections or even civil investigations, however y'all find yourself there. But this is what we teach our officers. Photograph the scene. We want to see what they were seeing if that screen was up. They could have been on a map screen. They could have been on some other screen. We want to see. Turn it off. That's what we tell our officers. Why would we tell them to turn it off?
It's continually logging.
It is. Now, here's the trick to that. If it's a pretty new one, these newer ones, I mean, they have gigabytes and gigabytes of data. Keep in mind, these GPS tracks, that 50,000 point track in the Cayman Islands was like 216 kilobytes. Tiny. It's a tiny bit of information. So the way we've come with technology, these newer units, they are not going to overwrite old data very quickly. They're not. But some of your older ones had minimal amounts of data that they would hold. So if you just let it sit there for, you know, 2 or 3 days, it would start overwriting that older data and you may lose some very good data. So we tell people that. Now, here's the problem with that. Now, thanks to technology, some of these come set to, as soon as you turn off, it gets rid of that track data, starts over new. You as the user have to tell it to save that track data. So we've got a number of them now that our officers nationally know about. And we will tell them that they actually will go in before they turn it off and they will save that data and then turn it off. Are any of you nervous about that legally? I love legal conversations.
If you, if the accident, I guess if the accident's out there, the boat's still out there, you have the officer or the person tell them to turn it off at that time, so it preserves what's there.
So generally, that's what we would do, depending upon what type unit it is, because we know some of them, as soon as you turn it off.
So,
So here's our thing. This is the way we train officers, and we've talked to a number of general counsel attorneys for police agencies, and they all agree. If you know something is going to get rid of data when you turn it off, and you turn it off, what did you just do? Destroy data. Exactly. So the articulation piece of this is I know that this unit will not automatically save track data. And I know it could be useful in criminal and civil investigations. Therefore, I'm going to save the data and then turn it off. I'm not looking at it. I'm not doing an illegal search. We are protected by the 4th Amendment from unreasonable searches, but then getting either consent or a search warrant. We'll talk a little bit more about legal considerations here in just a second. But yeah, we train our officers, just don't look at the data. That's an illegal search. Save it, video what you do, just so there's no question, turn it off. And then we have it, when we turn it back on with consent or a search warrant, we can look at that at that point. So here's a case here too. Some smugglers are coming in, human smuggling, police come out. They intercept the boat. They're waiting on additional boats to carry all these people, because sometimes these migrant boats will have dozens and dozens of people. They couldn't put them all on one boat. So they floated, it was about 3.5 hours waiting on, and they did not turn that GPS data off. So certainly could have been some really good data that it may have overwritten. So just be mindful if you see tracks like that, it could be what we're looking at. What about unintended data? Have you ever seen the raised buttons on these handheld GPSs? This was a handheld GPS that was in a drug smuggling case. The agent put it in his bag. He was gonna go to the office the next day. It inadvertently got turned on when he put it in his bag, and it tracked him all the way to his house. Do you want that? If you're trying to prosecute drug people, do you want your house location known to the, I guarantee you that defense attorney made that known, and all the goons in the back row were sitting there writing their notes. We'll take care of this. So don't do that. Leave it off until you get consent or a search warrant, right? This is a great picture. This is a GPS track that was automatically recorded on the unit. This was a day after the incident, but 2 days before the search warrant was issued. Think a good defense attorney is going to make an argument about that? Of course, he's going to say it's an illegal search. That's what they were doing. Mean, bad police were in the back parking lot trying to figure out what it said to see if they even needed a search warrant. And I don't blame them. I'm just not as slimy as attorney. Any of you seen setups like this? It's pretty common in larger vessels. They're networked together. Oftentimes there are multiple different systems on these boats that are capturing data. They're networked together. And so the awareness of these larger systems can be somewhat overwhelming. Again, if you're not familiar with it, contact these companies. They've got representatives. Get them to come out. But what does this do? Why is this? Can you help me with this? Don't be afraid. If this is really the data you need to help your case, look into it. Power cords. Some of these are pretty challenging to find. So we've had a number of ways that we have overcome this. Now, a lot of these power cords you can order off Amazon. If you take the unit, you can power it right up, and we'll talk about that. But sometimes on these really rare units, you may want to consider taking the power cord itself and unwiring it. Again, that's something we can do from the law enforcement perspective that you guys would have to just go through the right channel. Again, talking to that owner, consent, and just saying, hey, I need this to power it up and get this stacked. So be sure you're definitely going to need that power cord. And then secure the device. Are any of you taking GPSs on any of your investigations? Are you seeing them? Are you wishing you could take them?
Oh, I mean, like a portable GPS?
Yes, yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, if people have these on the boat, always look at those. And I have gotten so spoiled now. When officers call and go, man, it's really bad. There's blood everywhere and there's people screaming. That's an EMS job, call EMS. But what kind of motor do they have on it? Because a lot of these motors have ECUs on. What kind of GPS do they have? What kind of phone do they have? These are the questions I'm asking now, because I know the wealth of data that are in these and how important it can be for your investigation.
Yeah, I mean, with everybody having a cell phone on board, most of the time we drive around, that has GPS in it.
It does.
Take off their tracking.
Potentially so, if they're using apps that are tracking them. Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. Yamaha,
Yes,
Garmin, Simrad, Mercury, Broadway.
right.
Are those display units, tracking material?
Depends on how they're set up. Usually from the factory, they're set up to auto track.
Okay.
But user, you can go in there and turn all that off. Most people never do. They hit the button, they turn it on and go, look what I bought. Then they'll drive happily off into the sunset. And they never know, right? They don't. And they've got years and years of that. I even had a suppression hearing not long ago. The guy gave us consent after a crash. He was like, sure, download. He was very kind, but it showed a lot of history in that area. And that was part of, he was aware of that area. He was in the most congested part of the lake. And he was not looking, and he ran over a kayak, killed her. Okay, so that was part of our use. Well, in the suppression hearing, his defense attorney said, I want to suppress the GPS evidence because my client did not understand the wealth of data he was giving law enforcement. We're going to talk about that in the legal section here. But a lot of people just don't know. But you can go in there and turn it off, and we've had a few instances of people coming after a crash and realize, oh no, and trying to go in there and turn it off. We've got great video of a guy right after he struck a scuba diver, and he was off. The scuba diver was actually wrong. The scuba diver was well away of their divers down flat, way away. Had to be within 200 feet. He was like 600 feet. The guy runs over and he realizes, he goes back and he spends about 30 minutes at the marina poking around on his GPS. What do you think he's trying to do? Of course, yeah. So, so secure the device. Tools you need. Look, let me just be honest. We call this GPS forensics, but if I can do it, it's not really forensics. They don't let Tennessee country boys do any forensics. I mean, like we're from a young age, we're barred from anything with forensics, but this is easy. This is easy stuff and y'all can do it. All you need is the unit, power cables to get it turned on. And most of these use either micro SD or full-size SD cards. The older ones may even have a proprietary card. Keep in mind your old ones will only accept very small memory cards. I had one not long back. Every time I would put a card in it, it wouldn't recognize the card was in it to pull the data off of it. And I was using, I think like an 8 megabyte card. I dug into the user's manual. The biggest one it was accept was a 256 megabyte card. It's easier to find Jimmy Hoffa than find a 256 megabyte card anymore. So have one, just know that, dig into that manual. It's going to tell you everything you need to know about it.
The 80s model.
It was, well, it was in early 90s.
Early 90s.
Yes, and it was just one of those little black and white graph screens, but it actually had GPS tracking on it, but it would not recognize any of those other cards. Now, here's a secret I learned from somebody well smarter than me. If you know how, all you gotta do is take that 32 gigabyte card and put it in your computer. You can reformat it to a 256 megabyte. All it does is it makes the computer think it's 256 megabyte. So once I learned that, my life was complete. Power source. Okay, you're gonna need to be able to power it up. And it's a black and a red wire. Just don't mix them up. That causes problems. What about Faraday bags? Blocking signals. Like I told you earlier, when you put power to these things, immediately they will connect to the satellites. Even if you're in a room like this, they'll connect to the satellites and they'll start pulling data. And you're going to create more track down. So there's a way around that. And that's, you can either put them in simulator mode or demo mode. Have you ever gone to Bass Pro Shop and looked at them there and it's showing the graphs rolling across? They're in simulator or demo mode. So basically what it does is turns the GPS receiver off inside. That's all it does. But if you think that's going to be an issue, use a Faraday bag. Most of these, if not all of these, are free softwares, free to download. If you get anything out of this, Garmin Basecamp is a free program, great for GPS downloads. Google Earth, you can pull lots of GPS data in that depending upon the file format. Humminbird, they have a proprietary file type that doesn't play well with others, but you can open it up on Humminbird PC and it will open up. Some of these others you may need for certain applications. Burla is more of a higher end. You got to pay for that one, but it can give you analytics and statistics on a lot of GPS data, which is not necessarily what we need all the time. This software here, great software. Homeport, they don't support anymore, but Basecamp you can still download and it's a free program. If you've got GPS units in your personal boat, download that software and export your data and put it on your computer and see how easy it is. It's pretty simple. There's what Humminbird PC looks like. To get a Humminbird unit, put it in there. There's one button that says change to Google Earth, and it'll put it right in Google Earth. Pretty simple. GPS Babel is a program that changes file types. Everybody has their own file type and their own proprietary file type. There is sort of a, and I call it, this is bad, but an English language of GPS data, and that is GPX. That is the file format. A lot of GPSs now you can download straight to GPX format, but a lot of your older ones you can't. So this one will help you take it from one file type to the next. The truth is Google Earth is usually where I do a lot of my work, because that's what the public's used to looking at, right? I can zoom out and show landmarks and roads and points, but I can also zoom in. I can change the water level if I need to in that through historical data that's in there. Great tool, and I do many of my GPS analysis reports with screenshots from Google. They're tough. Okay, here's one that was busted in a crash. Here's one that we found with our ROV that had been underwater for 3 months. Bring them up, dry them out, they power up. They're pretty good units. So just because it's damaged, we have taken these where the screens were busted right here. We have called the factory. They will send us a screen. You'll have to pay for it. And then we'll basically use that as a donor screen. We'll take the old busted screen out, put the new screen in, put everything back together. And then we can actually view it, because a lot of these newer ones are all touch screen. So with that screen busted, that digitizer in there will not allow you to really select what you need to select to download. But both of those are good cases. Talk quickly about legal here. Do you think you have a right to privacy, or your client would have a right to privacy of their GPS data?
My country, no. In today's world, maybe not.
Privacy is a big old long talk, isn't it? We won't get too far into that, but the court has upheld in a number of states, GPS data, engine control module data, infotainment system data in your cars is all subject to Fourth Amendment protections. So therefore you either get consent or you get a search warrant, either way. And I've got a couple of things I want to read. The late Antonin Scalia here, he said it would be foolish to contend that the degree of privacy secured to citizens by the Fourth Amendment has been entirely unaffected by the advance of technology. If you take my phone and I give you the passcode, one, you'll learn I'm a pretty boring guy. And I text my 3 teenage daughters all the time. But what you'll learn is you can go through my search history, but can you learn about me through those things? What about my history of where I've gone? Yeah, what I've searched today. Don't tell anybody, but I searched Baltimore Orioles tickets for today's game. I've never searched that on my phone
You
before.
got 15 other advertisements right after that.
It knows, doesn't
It does.
it? But that's what he's saying, is you can get a lot of data about a person because of technology advances today, right? Just by this right here. Now, that was not always I would give you my phone right now and you'd say, man, he's pretty boring. That was not always my policy as a younger man. I was had a little more flair to me, but again, I'm just old now. So again, here's one. GPS monitoring creates a precise, comprehensive record of a person's public movements that reflects a wealth of detail about their familial, political, professional, religious, and sexual associations. What if you downloaded somebody's GPS in his car and you saw that every day he got off at 5 o'clock, at 6:30 he was at the liquor store, at 7:45 he was at the local synagogue, and then at 9 o'clock he was at home, and he did that every day? Would you be able to tell a lot about that guy? Yeah, you would, just by the places he goes, and that's what they're saying.
Every day.
Do what now?
Do you go to the liquor store every day?
Sure, why wouldn't he? He works in the maritime industry. He has to. But you can tell a lot. Let's say somebody you could tell if they work 3 days a week and they go to church every Sunday. I mean, it could be as innocent as that. By making available at a relatively low cost, such as substantial quantum of intimate information about any person whom the government in its unfettered discretion. You see that word a lot. I read court opinions, especially about voting cases, because I'm a geek, but Unfettered discretion. They hate the government having unfettered discretion and they don't want them to. Chooses to track may alter the relationship between the citizen and the government. That's true. I mean, it really is. So where we go, what we do is private. And that's why you get so many arguments about, well, this phone's tracking me. The second I, go by Best Buy, I get a bunch more ads for Best Buy. That's a bigger conversation, but just know these GPS data, it knows where you go. And I tell our officers that too. It's in their vehicles, it's on their computers. I'm like, just know this stuff you're using to prosecute somebody can also hang you. If they happen to be working, and I've had a few that kept going by their side chick's house, stopping there for a while. That's not good. So it tracks us too, and it keeps a precise set of movements on us. So the trend is the courts are recognizing how important this GPS data is. So make sure, the Fourth Amendment, it's there. I mean, if this is you, the Fourth Amendment says, no, you can't search it. But it also says unreasonable. If you go, hey, wait, I think he was doing this, and here's how I know, they'll go, ooh, all right, you can search him now. If you're reasonable in the court's eyes. So that's what the courts are seeing, and they're being very, very thorough about this information you can get through these channels. So be prepared for that fight. Play it safe. Get a warrant or consent. That's all you need to know. Everything you need to know to download this is in the manual there. I could have started out with that, couldn't I? It's all in the manual. Okay, they build these not for me and you for investigative purposes. They build these for the user to be able to use it, right? And it tells you how to export all that data, do everything you need. And there's what I was talking about, putting it in normal mode. It will reach out and grab those satellites. Simulator mode, and some of them call them demo mode, will take that out. So it's not creating tracks. Document your settings. Is this important? Yeah, it is. Every setting in it. What, and I've just built this sheet. It's one I go by: model, brand, serial number, who secured it, date and time of download, the map datum, lat and longitude units, waypoint tracks, routes. Any of that information, go through there and document that. So we can recreate what I saw, should be able to, and then conduct that physical examination of what you see. And I'm going to show you a bunch of what this looks like here real quick. It's as simple. When you put that card in there, go to the routes, tracks, and trails or waypoints, save the card. When you take that card out, you can put it in your computer and import that right into Google Earth or Garmin Basecamp. It's that simple. See why I said it wasn't forensic? I mean, even I could do it.
However, if you had that word, delete all your.
Yeah, don't do that. So one of the things we always do in the law enforcement community, save the card and you'll save it. And that is our evidentiary copy, and we log that into evidence. Then we will save it again, and that is our working copy. That way, we don't have an uh-oh like you're talking about. Oftentimes, we're taking the whole unit and logging it into evidence anyway, so. Be careful. A lot of times, if you hook it up with a cable, some of these old ones, and you have an internet connection, it will that unit tells it to automatically look for a software update. Just like anything else we plug into our computers, right? Update your software. It's better. Have we altered the machine then? Yeah. So from a law enforcement perspective, we've got to be very mindful of that. Make a working copy, like I said, and then here are the things we find. This was an actual crash in the Biscayne Bay, and these are the track points coming out of the Biscayne Bay. The other boat did not have a GPS, but you could clearly see a drastic reduction in speed and change in heading, and that's where the collision happened. So ultimately being able to show people this on a map prior to a crash or prior to a grounding, collision, or even what they did afterwards or prior to is monumental. And then drilling down more into it, you're getting these exact point data information here, and then you can establish a probable place of collision. I can tell you a lot of officers in the field do this stuff, but it's generally It's coming along, but some are still very nervous about doing this, putting themselves out there unless they understand it, but. I mean, if you need examples of what these reports look like or what, how we might create one, I've done a bunch of them, so be glad to send you some of that stuff. Look at a couple of quick case studies. We're on track to be done by lunch. Are y'all okay with that? Figured so, getting on. Lake Okeechobee, Florida. Any of you ever been there? Big round lake. Does it get windy there? Yeah. Lots of bass tournaments, 2 bass fishermen. Well, they didn't return, boat washed into shore, large scale search. And here's what we got. Okay, so their boat washes up, right? More times than not, you're seeing these with 2, 3, and 4, and 5 graphs on these in GPS units. I had a collision not long ago, 7 units between the 2 boats. That's great. Look, I like figuring crashes out, but if you're gonna GPS map it all the way into the crash for me, I'm good with that too. I'm okay. Even if you video it, I'm good with that too. It takes the guesswork out of it, but this is what they've got. Dried it out. Got good data there. 10th largest lake in the US. I guess I remember that, but lots of wind. And on that big open flat area creates a lot of those rollers. Is that good for bass boats? No. So here's your bass boat GPS evidence. Pulled it out, dried it off. And here are your conclusions. Ultimately, what they did is they went over a lake and then stuffed it. One of them came out, had on life jackets, one drowned, and they did actually find one that was okay. But here's what their GPS data looked like. So pretty good information. Here's another side note to GPS track data. A lot of times we're called to situations where a boat's just idling around in a circle, right? The guy's keys and his wallet and his cell phone are still on there. What should we assume?
Over.
Yeah, he's testing depth, as one of my officers says. So what can we do there? Can we get that data immediately?
I think so, yes.
Yes, so we can as law enforcement, but we have to articulate exigent circumstance. We think this person could, I mean, they absolutely could hit a bank and flew off on the bank and they're just injured. And now their boat's out there doing this, but we can pull that data to see where to search for those people. Exigent circumstances.
Last scene point and then you get the-
Yes, and that's where we would direct our rescue crews to. Sometimes we found that they've hit a bank and been thrown off. More times than not, they're in the water, but that at least gives us a place because those families are already sitting there going, why is this taking so long? And years ago, we'd have to let them float up because we didn't have these technologies, but we can go find them now. Here's one more. This is a pretty good one too. 2 vessels collided in the intercoastal waterway. 1 person dead, another seriously injured. Here are the boats. Was it 30, what says a 34 CV or something? Pretty nice system set up on it. Vessel 2. Lots of damage. Yes, lots of hull and cap separation there. So, Broward County, narrow channel, concrete seawalls, background lighting after dark. Are y'all seeing those as contributing factors in some of your incidents?
The blue around the speakers, it was trying to be better.
Potential, yes. So interior cockpit lighting, definitely. Absolutely. But let's talk about background lighting. You're coming into a marina and everything's lit back there. Will those red and green navigation lights, your all around white lights, will they hide in there sometimes? I have seen that with my own very eyes. I've come in and like, whoa, there's a boat right there. And I never realized that was on patrol. I just didn't see it. But you mentioned it, interior lights. Are you seeing more boats come with these interior lights? And what do people immediately do? Turn them all on, right? I bought them, I paid for them, I'm turning them on. You'd be surprised the people our officers encounter at night. They're like, I can't see nothing. Again, that's one of those where you're like, just try to pay attention. If you can't see, you'll get in one of our game warden trucks and they got black tape over everything because they drive in the dark most of their life. They know they need their night vision and they cannot see with all this glowing light inside the truck. But these boats, they'll turn on all this light. I've got numerous pictures of boats that are lit up inside and out, but they're up in the trees.
Or the spotlight reflecting.
Oh, don't get me started on spotlights. So I got one early in my career installed in the T-top of my boat, and anybody that would drive with docking lights or have a spotlight, I would take my big old searchlight, it was like 2 gazillion candle power, and I would put it right at it and go all the way to them with my blue lights. They were like, man, I can't see. And I'm like, ha, welcome to the club. That's why I came over here. You blinded me, I blinded you back. Turn it off. So numerous idle speed and no wake zones, okay? There's a number of manatee zones there, but countywide 25 mph speed limit. This is important in this case. GPS evidence, some really good stuff there, really good Garmin data. Here it is. Investigator takes pictures of everything he did when he downloads all of that information. I'd suggest you do that too. All the settings, take pictures of all that. And you see he's got that here, every part of it, everything that's set up in that system. Again, more setup data. He's got pictures of all that. He's got his card. And then the examination. So one of them had just left the dock and had not turned on his GPS. Okay, they were found to be off, but this is the other one. Okay. This is a no wake zone, anything shaded in red. And what the officer did is took and shaded with these polygons you can do right on Google Earth, and shaded where the 25 mph zones are and the red zones are no wake zones. It happened right past. It happened outside of the 25 right into the no wake. Okay, but right here, he was going 41 mph. So he wasn't slowing down. So here's everything he did prior to the crash. This is the crash right up here. But you can see his average speeds. Now, every bit of this is either idle speed or 25 mph. Okay, so this is at night. Everything in yellow is 25 mph. So there's a neat function on Garmin Basecamp. You can create graphs for speed over water or speed over land. So that gentleman had 4 trips that day, okay? I take that back, he had 5. So in the morning, he comes out, and this is his first track. He just put them all together. Here's the speed limit, and he drew that all the way across there. The reason he did not put a speed limit here is he was out in the Gulf of Mexico. There's no speed limit there. So, with that being said, he goes and gets gas right here. Is he operating okay? Less than 25 miles an hour, right? Yep. So when he comes, that's when he goes to get gas. This is when he comes back on Port Everglades. Then he takes some friends out. Goes out in the Atlantic Ocean. He goes down in front of all the girls in bikinis there, and then comes back home. Not really getting too crazy, but again, there's no speed limit. Now he goes from his house to a place called Bow Campers. Now, any of you been there? Local watering hole, good place to get a cold beverage and something to eat. So he goes there. This is all 25. Towards the end of it, he gets a little high, gets on up close to 50 miles an hour for a little bit, and then comes down. This is his way home. Okay, this is after Bow Campers on his way back to his house. Are you seeing the habit or the operational characteristics go up? That probably directly correlated with his upward trajectory of his blood alcohol content, I would think. And it did. We got video. All right, I want to take a field trip. Can y'all come up here so you can see this? Because you won't be able to see it from back there. But I got 2 different videos. Come closer. Didn't mean to mess up the whole thing.
Turn the lights, those lights out a little bit.
There you go. There you go.
But I got 2 different angles on this. This is a church nearby, and only in Florida do you need security cameras on the church. We'll play it, see if it works. All right, so what you're gonna see is you're looking south here. Here comes the boat right here. And it's coming up the canal, the light flashing, it's a thunderstorm coming there. But you'll see him go right out of sight, and then he comes back inside here. Bang. right there, just happened right out of frame, and there's the two boats. That was the boat that hit him. Yeah, they did have lights on, which is a good thing. Now let's look at the other.
Another church.
It's the same church, it's just a different angle. They never know what angle the thugs will come from. So you'll see the lights back there. Again, the no wake is starting about right here, and this is your, guy whose blood alcohol may have been 2.5 times the legal limit. But you'll see him coming along there. There he comes.
Somewhere 25 miles.
Well, yeah, it was about 47 is what they figured, coming right through there. And he said he was hurrying to get away from the thunderstorm. Got it, no problem. There's the other guy. There's the other guy who is at no wake speed. And so the boat that hit him here, the operator is a retired sergeant with Broward County Sheriff's Department. What you'll see is he floats over here. I'll forward this on a little bit, but they float on over here a little bit. Well, it won't let me again. I said it would.
He missed the other obstruction though, didn't
He did.
The one going 49 was the Broward County?
It was.
Okay.
So his buddy was ejected off that boat, but if I would have not been so hasty, and we'll watch the crash again, but you'll see him, they float over right in this area. He is in no hurry to find his friend, but he's in more hurry to throw all the beer cans and liquor bottles off his boat, which is all on video as well. But again, the GPS data from the entire day, it's not just the crash, painted that picture to us of his operational characteristics prior to impairment, during impairment, and his ability to make decisions after the crash. He was not, and that was one of the things the prosecutor said, is he was not acting like somebody who had just been in a traumatic event and lost a best friend. And they did find the friend a little bit later, but you'll see him float over here and he's just kind of walking around and sinking beer bottles, liquor bottles and things like that. We're always glad when we can get video, but it doesn't always work.
Did the person die?
He did, and there were some challenges. I think the FWC didn't even know that this video existed. They got some good information, and I forget about the prosecution on this case. But I don't think they even prosecuted, but it was heavily fought civilly as always, sometimes.
So why were you involved? If you had Florida wildlife there, why were you?
I wasn't. This is just one of the case examples
Okay.
we use in our national training. I was.
All right.
Well, he hit that other boat pretty hard. Didn't do a whole lot of damage.
Yeah, both boats were total. I know y'all
Well,
are
I
used to
know.
looking at boats, but just an impact like
But this
that.
way, it's still floating.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And you can drive those boats, but the structural integrity of them.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. But yeah, he'll float through there and kind of do his thing, but.
He's cleaning up.
Well, he's talking to the people there and he's, oh, sorry, the other people on the boat are significantly injured. So there's some 911 calls made. There's the other boat that's floating there, but you'll see him. He starts picking up stuff coming up here and they enhance this video, but to show him, but he'll just start dropping stuff overboard. But again, it's just as important about the GPS track afterwards and their behavior afterwards as it is prior to the crash as well, is to establish that mindset.
There he is. Definitely lost his job.
So anyway, there you go. All right. Almost done here. Just got a couple more to look at. Here's an older one. This was one of the first ones that we did in Tennessee. I'm gonna bring you back up. So if you just want to hang out, man, we'll bring you back up here in a second. Back in 2012, 2 men fishing from a bass boat. They've got their lights on, sitting there fishing just like they do. They see a boat coming at them. They can hear it first and then they can see it. And it has no lights on. Well, they stand up, they start waving. They're doing everything they can to take action to avoid a collision. Doing their thing, help, hey, go. And the guy crashes into it. Everybody falls down. Next thing they know, there's 3 people in their boat, or there's 2 people. I'm sorry, there were 2 people fishing and now they got 3. That guy was ejected out into their boat. And here's this boat, really nice boats too. These are our go fast boats in Tennessee. Pretty rough stuff. But the boat that struck the other boat, he had an older Humminbird GPS. And our investigator said, hey, how fast were you going? He said, man, probably close to top speed, maybe 30, 25 to 30, something like that. He said, that's as fast as the boat will go. And y'all saw the boat, that's as fast as it'll go on a good day. Well, the other people, what do you think they said?
He's a little faster than that.
Flying, absolutely flying. But again, it's just like the person that's been struck by the car. Everybody's moving fast if you've been struck by, because you don't want to be struck by a car. So ultimately, here's what happened. This is him coming into the crash. And then he crashes. Now, what's all this stuff right here?
He tried to show sandbar.
Well, the challenge about this right here is this water on this lake fluctuates 30 to 40 feet every year for hydroelectric production and water storage. So you can go back in. There's a little historical button right here, and you can go back and put water back in this lake. But this actually didn't happen on the sandbar. It was actually water there. But that boat doesn't have an engine cutoff switch attached to the operator, like we always say, and it starts going into the little circle of death. And so it just continues to plot points. Now, neat thing about this, it plotted a point every second, but there's no speed on it. If you know distance and time, can you figure speed? You can. So that's what one of our investigators did, is he would take 5-second sections. He wouldn't take just 1 second. He took a bunch of different 5-second and averaged them all together. And ultimately, here's what he came up with. He knew the device was plotting every 1 second. The average 5-second track, and the guy said he didn't let off the throttle any, he just never saw him, 210 feet. So he extrapolated that out and came up with 28.6 miles per hour. So does that support his statement? It does. It really does. And that's about top end on that boat. So don't think just because it doesn't give you time and speed. If you know 2 of the 3 of time, speed, distance, you can figure that out. And if you're not good at math like me, there are little calculators. You can just put it in on the internet and it will tell you. You pick 2, put them in, and it'll tell you what the other GPS data, right? We talked about phones. Will people, when crashes happen, will they immediately start texting and sending pictures and things like that? Absolutely, they will.
Yeah, can I ask you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm, tied to the fire department,
Okay.
so we're kind of the same thing. Are you having that are you seeing that impact in your industry as well? Because I mean, I think we're getting, I want to see maybe 1 or 1 crash call a day.
Yes, so I'm definitely hearing that from county sheriff's offices, police departments. They get these auto alerts from phone, their crash detection.
Our watches.
Or watches, and what that can be, we've had noted incidents of runners where they're running and they will drop their phone or they will fall, and it triggers it because it's what it is. It's dealing with velocity and that speed stopping. It's figuring that there's some sort of incident that happens. What that does is makes an auto call to 911. And so, yes, we're getting some of that on the water, not as much. We've had several wakeboarders. We've got several wakeboarders who have taken really big spills, and it's triggered their watch to do, their Apple Watch to do 911 calls. And say it says crash detection. There's a lot of good stuff on here. If you're doing these investigations after the fact, hey, if you don't have anything to hide, let's download that phone. I promise you, people say more on this than you care to know. In your car, and these have got lots of data in. Again, you may not need them for your investigations, but for some of our criminal investigations, you don't get this GPS data through these same softwares. I'm telling you, that's a whole different set of training, and it's pretty technical, but you can do it. So other GPS data, okay, cell phones, cell tower tracking. We're doing a lot of that now. If we have hit and run crashes, and we don't know who was in a particular place, especially if it's a remote location, we'll do geofence warrants where we actually put up a geofence. We will tell the map, anybody during this time, any cell phone, It's called an MEIN or MIN. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of, too many acronyms. But we will say anything in this fence from 3 PM to 3:45 PM. And it will give us all that information, so we can get some good leads with geofence information. The infotainment systems, what about 911 calls? You deal with the fire department, you know, sometimes that's very important, but it's not always perfect, right? Not always perfect. What about photos? When people take photos, have you ever seen when you take a photo, it will tell you where you took it? It will. And if you get into the data of that, it will give you a GPS location. So add a pretty neat one where that happened in. We're almost done. So here's one, we had a drowning from a vessel. There was a big language barrier. It's a Hispanic family, very panicked, open area of the lake. What options do we have? Okay, this marker A right here was the first 911 call that was made. Okay, disconnected before they could figure out a GPS location, but we know it was made right there. B, second 911 call. Triangulation was made at 3:28 at that location. C, this is where the family said Mr. Perez went down, right there. Okay, they took us right out there. We'll take him out there and say, we'll drop a pin. They were on scene within 5 minutes of the call, and that's right where they do them. We'll usually put a buoy out, get the rescuers to come to that location and start working from there. 7-5, the next day they were brought back to try to get a better location. Okay, 7-6 and 7-7 and kept referring to that location up there. They kept talking about a hole in the wall, which there's a location there called Hole in the Wall. Everybody kind of knows it on that area. It's just kind of like a cave, but it's underwater. They were referring to that large hole. Marker E, that's where the cadaver dog gets. I'm not getting into cadaver dogs. I hate cadaver dogs more than I hate Satan. I've never seen one of them work. Maybe you love them. Maybe you got one at home. I don't know, but I ain't seen one work yet. Now, 7-7, one of our officers, he spoke to the family and they indicated that right before the incident, they took a picture of them swimming. They got the metadata off of that and it gave them this location right here. And he was about 100 feet from that location. So as you see, is a good distance away from where they kept saying they knew he was. And when people go down, they usually stay down in the location they go down in until they come back up. And then they're subject to float away. Last one we'll look at right here. I'll let this video will loop right here. If you want to come closer and see it, you can. How many other boats are on this big old open lake here? So what happened?
Lake's too low. No. Thunderstorm.
It's raining, yeah,
Rain.
it's raining.
He hit some of it. He hit something. Like you said something.
But he hit another boat.
Yeah,
He
Yeah.
did?
Yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of tough to see, especially from way back there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's it.
They're
Yeah.
coming from not the same location, but generally the same location. So let's look deeper into this. They both got GPS, one's dead, 3 injured. Here's their tracks, and then this is the marina right here that you got the video from. 55, a whole minute, they can see each other very clearly. What happened? Why did they crash into each other? Was it, do what?
One didn't give way.
Right. If you have a crash, one or both boats have violated NAV rules every single time.
So rain could have had a big impact in it on the windshield, so I was ducking behind a wind cover.
Human behavior.
Yeah.
A lot of times I will list things that are not criminal in these. Boater fatigue. The guy's been out there for 24 hours straight. He tells me I was wore out. I was like a zombie. Studies have shown fatigue and lack of sleep can affect you just as much as carrying alcohol or drugs. So something to think about, but they absolutely were. And when we set those boats up, the one that was approaching from the left, all of his GPS was right here on his right, and he was hunkered down, and he had his rain jacket over him, and he was just peeking up every now and then. So ultimately, it's just like a blind spot on an 18-wheeler. They were both in each other's blind spot. Did they maintain proper lookout? No. Was that criminal in nature? Not necessarily. Oftentimes, stuff like this, the prosecutors will not prosecute. They'll say handle it in civil court. And that's where y'all come in. It is, but this was a human behaviors case for sure. There was no alcohol or drugs. Great people, pillars of their community. Just momentary not paying attention. 12:22.
All right.
I hope you've got something out of this. I hope you just realize that what's there. You're gonna leave with my card, my phone number, call me. I'm just a guy from Tennessee. I ain't charging you a penny for nothing. If you need help with something or direction, call me. I want to help you. My rewards are every day with my family and friends. I don't need money. My wife is poor, but
Yeah, you're.
anybody marry rich for money? Did anybody do that?
I'm intending to.
Good for you. As a man who didn't do that, let me tell you, I was the poorest guy in town, then I married the next poorest girl. But it's okay, she's a sweetheart. But call me anytime, please, 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 I want to help you, I'll get you started on the right path, and I'll actually make you strangely dangerous at this. You'll be good, you can be good in just a few short tries. But here to work with you, and let your other folks know that this technology is out there. Your other surveyors you work with say, look right there, there may be some good data there, because this data just does not lie. Any questions?
Unless they take out the processor.
Ooh, have you seen that happen?
Can't tell you I have, I can't tell you I have.
Fair enough.
But I can tell you that if you don't have a processor, that information is not available.
I could see that. Yeah, it's monkey with, absolutely. Sure.
Have you attended any of the, for example, Mercury black box technology discussions that are limited strictly to Leo, for example, in
Yes.
Miami? And
So we deliver, Mercury comes and does a 4-hour block on ECU downloads to our level 2 accident investigation class in Havana, Florida.
Yeah.
So Pete Chisholm from Mercury
Yeah.
Marine is very active in the AUIC circuit.
Yeah.
And that's why he teaches that, because he will actually ship a law enforcement officer the cables, a computer and everything. You plug it up, he will wireless into that, he will download everything and then send you all the graphs. So that data partnered with this GPS data, when the ECU data says they were going approximately 56, the GPS data says they were going 55. They're both pointing at each other going, look, they're both telling the truth. And that's great data too. ECU, jet skis too. Yamaha, Mercury, got great data. Suzuki, there's a little bit there. Volvo, Penta, not that, nothing that I've been able to find. But they've got, Yamaha and Mercury got the lion's share of the market anyway, so it's usually who we deal with. Yeah.
Sometimes too, surveys, if the GPS does not have a number on it, but you don't know what it is, you can go into settings and get all the whole network of everything.
Yes, absolutely.
So.
And one of the things you're
It
seeing
still
too,
knows everything.
they're integrated systems now from, it's called Mercury Vessel View.
Yep.
That is integrated GPS just right there on those engines as well. So there's data there we're beginning to be able to pull, and that's relatively new within the last 3 to 5 years. And then, Yamaha has one, I forget the name of it.
It's, yeah, but it's.
It's basically the same thing as Mercury Vessel View, but it's an operational diagnostics tool that it gives you a visual representation, of everything's happening with the motors, but it's got GPS data embedded in that.
Matt, what's the take from the insurance industry on all of this? Because this must be fantastic news for the insurers.
Great question. Why do you think Mercury Marine got on board with us? Because we called them and we're like, hey, we got a couple of Mercuries. This is a bad one. If they can get on board on the front end, it helps limit their liability in the back end and shows transparency that they're working for law enforcement. They're actually taking our recommendations and giving us engines for these stage collisions, because they want to see firsthand. Pete comes to our stage collision and he will download the information. He wants to say firsthand, these motors will do this or they will not do that. And it helps them prevent liability. I would think, and it's my fault, 100% my fault, but if we reached out to some of the insurance companies, there is no doubt there's great funding for them to be able to put into this research and knowledge of this, because this, if they're willing, you know, a lot of these insurance companies, they're just gonna write a check. If it's something minor, it's not worth fighting. But these higher, you know, 5, 6, and 7-figure settlements, it's worth it for them to fight it, but they've got to know that they can fight it, that there's data there worth using to fight it. So great questions.
Running of grounds, because I've done a couple of running of grounds using GPS. They said, oh, I wasn't over there, I wasn't over there. Yes, you were.
There you go. Man, that's exactly how you use it.
With the insurance report, all the photos of what you've taken, of the drawings and lay it out. No
If
question.
you give the insurance company something they can fight with,
Mhm.
they should fight, because mine and your premiums keep going up, right?
Exactly.
I'm insuring 2 teenage daughters to drive right now. Please send money. But that's what we're seeing, and I hate a frivolous lawsuit for every part of my being. And usually it comes down to that knucklehead behind the steering wheel that just goes, "Ooh, I don't wanna pay for this." I'm gonna say product fault, liability on the company.
But if you look at the bottom left-hand corner of your report and it says alcohol, everything's out the door.
I hope so. I
I
hope
mean,
so.
that cures that.
Good.
Well, some of it, because I had that.
Are all insurance companies like that? Or
get-
they all have addendums in there that
No,
say,
this is in your report. When y'all write your report at the bottom end,
Yeah.
it gives you all description, what
Yeah.
happened, how many injured and all that. And on the bottom left-hand corner, it talks about the condition, and then they put in alcohol.
Yeah.
On your, it's on.
so that helps y'all. That helps.
Hell, yeah, that
Okay.
takes us out of it. Because we don't have to go guess at it anymore. There was a
Good.
very vision issue.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And we always, you know, in our statistical reports, we may have a number of things happening, NAV rule violations, we may have steering rule violations, or may have criminal violations. But impairment is the leading contributing factor in all those. It usually goes as our primary contributing factor, because if you remove that, they'll start making better decisions. They'll start paying attention more. They'll start slowing down.
What's the ratio to alcohol, you know, when you're finding all these investigations, is it 90% alcohol involved, or is it 80?
No, so the true statistic I can tell you that's factual is nationwide, 30 to 40% of fatality, injuries and boating incidents, recreational boating incidents, alcohol or drugs played a contributing factor. And that's one of the highest ones.
35 to 40%.
Yeah, 30 to 40, somewhere in there. My state will go from 25 to 45. It's varying each year, and it depends on, directly correlated with how hard that officer worked his investigation. Some, for whatever reason, don't get blood. Our law says we gotta get blood.
Any other percentages insidious?
NAV rule violations.
Okay.
But, it's that lack of knowledge on the waterways. They're like, I see those red and green, I'll just stay close to them. I don't know what that means. And there's no speed limits or stop signs, so I'll go wherever I want to until you crash. And then that's when we look at it, and we're like, hey, were you standing on a giveaway vessel? And they're like, are you speaking English? What are you saying? They don't, most of the public doesn't know those things, but we still list them on your report. Questions?
Anybody online? Any questions from the online guys?
I've done my level best to quit walking, and I'm sorry. I know you point, I'm a walker. I would have been hanging from the ceiling, but it's the way I do.
I think that's a wrap.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
There, 12:31. I had to hurry. Good.
Hey,
I'll give y'all all my card here before I leave.
That was outstanding.
Thank you.
Gravel, do like